Hey everybody, Shannon here from Pish Posh Reselling. Now you guys may have seen in the past some of my coffee mug videos where we talked about different coffee mugs that are great for resale, ones that we want to be on the lookout for. Well, I don't just talk about and research coffee mugs to make videos, but I also do buy and sell them at thrift stores, yard sales, and places like that. So today I just thought it would be fun to do a quick recap of 2025 and share my top 10 coffee mug sales from the past year. Now, I am pretty selective when I pick up coffee mugs to resell. That's where that research really does come in handy. And so if you watch my what sold videos every week, then you realize it's not like I'm selling coffee mug after mug after mug after mug. I kind of have a threshold of where I like to be my minimum price that I'll sell a coffee mug for. And I like to just hunt out those really fun, interesting mugs that might have more value than you'd think. So we're going to start. I decided my cutoff for this video would be any mug that sold for $30 and up. Looking through all my solds through the past year, I had most of them kind of fall in the $15 to $25 range. That's kind of what I call like the bread and butter coffee mugs. But these are the ones that stood out just a little bit more. So we're going to start with one that sold for $30.50. And that was a Great Northern Railway coffee mug. It was like a pottery mug. And like I said, it sold for $30.50. And so I usually am on the lookout for any kind of like train, railway, right? There's a lot of collectors in those categories, but even we sold some mugs in lower ranges of like Alaska Airlines and, just different maybe transportation collectibles. Sometimes those mugs can be really good as well. Okay, number 2, we're going to talk about this vintage Mount Hood shaving mug. Okay, so it was the style of a shaving mug. It was hand painted and it had a picture of Mount Hood on it. It also said at the bottom like Portland, Oregon. So it was probably a souvenir or something like that. That mug did sell for $35. Okay, so we're going over for number 3. We're going to stick with that value of $35, but we're going to go over to Etsy. And this sold on Etsy. It's a Hot Joe High Wave travel mug. And if you've seen some of my mug videos, we did talk about travel mugs and no slip mugs being ones to keep an eye out for. This was just kind of a classic look at Hot Joe. This style has kind of been around for a little bit. And this was just solid black and it sold for $35. Now for number 4, we're surprisingly seeing that Starbucks is making my list. Starbucks hits my list twice out of the 2 out of the 10 are Starbucks, even though in the grand scheme of things, Starbucks mugs I'm not picking up every single Starbucks mug I see anymore. But this particular one, if you guys remember, if you've watched my videos before, these were some Been There mugs. These were brand new. They were from Idaho. So they were the Starbucks Idaho Been There mug. Sold for $35. We were on a road trip and my son picked up a few. We picked up a few. They were like, I think it was right before the new design of Starbucks mugs was coming out or they had come out. So this particular store we were in had marked down all the older style Been There mugs to like $9 or something like that. Maybe less, $7, something lower than normal. And so we stocked up on a few of them and sold them all. Okay, number 5 is a Fig Joe Flint Vikings mug. I just found this at one of our local thrift stores. This also sold for $35, so I'm sensing a theme here as to where I like to put my pricing. I really love the graphic on this mug. It was vintage, and like I said, it sold for $35. I seem to remember paying about $3 for it. Okay, so number 6, we're back to Starbucks again. And Starbucks, this is from when Starbucks and Tazo Tea had a partnership and they were selling like co-branded items, or some things just said Tazo, but they were sold only at Starbucks stores. Anyway, this style mug, the scroll handle is called Rococo mug is the keyword you want to use for these. Keep an eye out for them. I sold this particular one for $42. Okay, number 7. So we're getting up out of there, out of that $30, $40, $35 range. Also with this next one. Now this is one that is part of a genre that I had talked about in another video in the past about a certain type of coffee mug that is good to keep an eye out for, and that is vintage computer or geek related, geek core related coffee mugs. So right after I made that video, I was at Goodwill and I looked down and there was this Java Sun Microsystems coffee mug, you know, probably from the 90s or so, somewhere in there. And we sold that coffee mug for $45. Okay, next up was a fairly recent sale, which I don't even know that I've gotten to in my what sold videos yet. So this mug is by Bodum. And it doesn't look like anything special, but if you know anything about, speaking of Geek Core, if you know anything about Star Trek Next Generation, this is the style mug that Jean-Luc Picard, Captain Picard, uses to drink his Earl Grey tea in some episodes or scenes or whatever. So it's kind of known as the Picard mug. We picked up 4 of these at the local bins clearance store that we have. And I will full disclosure say that we did not know exactly what we were picking up, just that there was a set of 4 Bodum. They were super cheap. We decided to go for it. And then as Mr. Pish Posh did the research, he was like, this is the Picard mug. And so, which I had a vague recollection of having come across in my research before, but obviously not enough to clock it when I saw it in the thrift store. And so we're selling them one at a time. He sold one. We sold one so far. We sold it on Etsy for $54. Okay, next one is also an Etsy sale. And I sold a couple of these in the last year, 2 or 3, and this was the highest one. And so a lot of times you can get those higher prices on Etsy that you can get from some other places. But this was the Libby Celestial mug. So Libby glass, it's a glass mug. It's got sun, moon, stars kind of motif on it. It was made popular by the TV show Friends. So now that everything 90s is hot again, then anything celestial is kind of having a moment again. And then specifically this mug, people like the fact that it was shown on that TV show. And so we sold this one for $54. It was in pretty good condition. And last but not least, especially not least, because I saved the highest value mug for last, and I sold this mug for $72, and it was a Canonsburg Temporama vintage mid-century coffee mug. Now, the key with this one is to recognize the fact that it was not the coffee cup that would go with the saucer, which is smaller. This was a bigger full-size mug, and those are just harder to come by. Usually the cups and saucers are what everybody can find and sell. And other pieces of Temporama might not even sell for that much. But this particular mug is kind of a rare one. And I happened upon 2 of them. One of them turned out to be cracked. I still have that one listed at a much lower price, but nobody's bit the bullet yet. But this one took a couple months, but I found a buyer at $72. Okay, so that's it. That's my top 10 coffee mugs from 2025. Please leave a comment down below. What was your best coffee mug sale from the last year or of all time? I'm not picky. And if you don't sell coffee mugs, you might want to start looking, or just give me the reasons why, you've kind of stayed away from it. I do admit tons and tons and tons of mugs out there that are not even worth $10. And so you don't want to waste a whole lot of packing materials and time on a mug that's just going to sit. So it's good to be selective. And so probably in the description down below, I will link the various coffee mug videos that I've done to help you get started on your research. And we will talk to you guys soon.